Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. I am Dave Brown. This is the New Populist. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Well, this video will be a little pessimistic. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but these last few weeks has really crystallized in my mind what the establishment may do next to take down MAGA. Now, we've seen now 6 years of this operation, because that's what it is. That involves the intelligence agencies, the Democrat Party, the mainstream media. They have systematically destroyed anybody that they could that is a MAGA person. I mean, we can just go through all the people starting in 2017 till now. Paul Manafort, the campaign manager, Michael Flynn, the national security advisor, George Papadopoulos, a campaign advisor, Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's personal lawyer, Alan Weisselberg recently, he's the, or was the CFO of Trump Organization, Peter Navarro, Trump's economic advisor, and now we have Steve Bannon being arrested, and he claims that 35 other pro-MAGA people were also arrested, raided by the FBI. So things have been bad for 6 years on this front as far as what the FBI and the State Department, the DOJ is willing and capable of doing. And I think this last speech by Biden really is telling us what is coming next. He described MAGA as being an extremist ideology, a clear and present danger. And I've always said, when you label people within the country domestic terrorists, regardless of who they are, left or right, Antifa or anybody else, that sets a dangerous precedent. And when Ted Cruz said that the people who went into the Capitol on January 6th were domestic terrorists, I bristled. I said, that's crazy. You can't go there. And of course, he went on Tucker Carlson and got called out on that, and he started backtracking. And the point I've always made is, when you do that, you're giving the government a lot of tools to come after you. And we were warned a long time ago by Ron Paul with the Patriot Act that this apparatus, this law, would be turned at some point against American citizens. And now we've seen the last several years this apparatus turned against the MAGA crowd. Now, where is the line for these people? I'm done trying to say that there's not a line that they won't cross. Clearly, they will cross lines. And we've seen the last few years just how willing Americans are to follow what the government says, not challenge them, and not push back. And the people who do that, who do push back, they are punitively attacked by the government, by social media. They have their livelihoods taken away from them. Some of them are imprisoned. So there is a mechanism in place right now that crushes people who stand up to the government and to the establishment. And so we have this Biden speech again, where he talks about the MAGA crowd being extreme, clear and present danger, the greatest threat to our democracy. Now, others have pointed this out, but I think it bears repeating, is that he was setting the stage for what is to come. So we've seen the Department of Homeland Security talk incessantly about domestic terrorism, white nationalism being the greatest threat to our country. And of course, people are going, why? Where's the evidence that this is happening? Well, it wasn't, but they were laying the groundwork, planting the idea that this was a problem because at some point in the future, when things get a little wound up, they're going to fall back on this and go, see guys, we said it before, we told you white nationalism, MAGA extremism, this is the biggest threat to the country, and here it is right now, we called it. So this Joe Biden speech, the DHS, all of this is in preparation for, I think, Donald Trump being frog marched out of Mar-a-Lago or Trump Towers in handcuffs. And of course, if that happens, you know that CNN or MSNBC will be there to record it. The FBI will very conveniently leak that information out. And you might say, isn't that kind of extreme? How can you say that could happen? And I'm thinking to myself, why not? Why wouldn't they? What punishment have they faced for doing anything? Have you heard any leading Republicans really stand up and speak back on these issues? Mitch McConnell, the leader for the Republican in the Senate. You're getting crickets from most of the Republican establishment. There's just a handful of people in Congress right now who are actually really MAGA, and they relatively have very little power. So I say, why not? And the only thing I can think that would stop them from doing this is if they thought that arresting him and embarrassing him would galvanize enough people to push back and vote against them. So that's their calculation. Will arresting Donald Trump mean that 55% of the country is pissed off and think they went too far? If that number is under 50%, I don't think there's anything stopping them from doing it. Why not? And just, going past that, looking at our legal system in general, this is really scary. If you go to court in D.C. as a Republican, there is zero chance of a fair jury. The people were always biased, but I think these last 6 years, the left has gotten to this point now where they look at Trump and MAGA as such an existential threat that were they to serve on a jury, I think they convict any Republican irrespective of what the actual evidence is. And the left knows it, Democrats knows this, the DOJ knows this. So we essentially have no chance of having a fair day in court being judged by our peers. That is gone 100% in DC and probably in other jurisdictions as well. And when you get to that point, you essentially are in a Soviet-style totalitarian country. Now, are we totalitarian in the way that the Soviet Union was, where everybody was under the thumb constantly? No. But the system is in place right now where if you get too far out of line, all of a sudden you can see yourself being attacked, whether it's being canceled on social media, having your credit cards turned off, your bank drops you, you're put on a no-fly list. The mechanisms are there to come after you, but most people are under that radar. But step out of line, and the government has those things in place to come and take you out. And I talk about fascism. People say, what is fascism? I tweeted about this, and people were, no, you've got fascism wrong. What is fascism? Fascism is a merger of government and corporation working together as sort of a single entity to establish and set the rules and to guide the country. And we've seen that the White House was working with social media companies to ban people, to take away their free speech. That is fascism. You don't always need a strong man like a Hitler or Mussolini to have a fascist sort of country. We don't have a single person in the executive that creates some sort of leadership there. We have a swamp, this monolithic entity that's faceless, but moves in one direction and has an ideology. And that's what we see with this Biden administration. Joe Biden is not in charge, but he is part of a larger entity that, again, moves in this neoliberal, globalist direction. And that's the executive per se. That's what's leading this sort of fascism within the United States. And so going forward, my concern is that even if we have a change in the House in 2022 in the midterms, that doesn't remove Merrick Garland from the DOJ, nor does that remove Christopher Wray from the FBI or any of the other heads of these alphabet organizations or agencies. And what real power do the congressional Republicans have? And better yet, what will they actually do? Now, there's guys that I like, but what actually gets done? Rand Paul has some great clips where he's interrogating people like Fauci, Jim Jordan. He takes his jacket off, rolls up his sleeves, and he grills people. What actually gets done? Not a whole lot. And in those 2 years, you still have the DOJ working. And again, they arrest Trump, for example, you're going to have half the country clapping like seals. And because they set up this structure again, where any pushback by MAGA is now in people's minds associated with extremism, if anybody, or if we collectively, not say riot, but protest and get out in the streets to protest Trump being arrested, for example, we will immediately be called domestic terrorists. We're, again, having another insurrection. We are against the rule of law, and Trump is not above the law. And how dare these MAGA Republicans come out in the streets and protest that the law is being enforced? And of course, we know it's an absolute joke. Anybody who has an ounce of honesty can look at the Hunter Biden laptop and the fact that, I mean, just the rampant amount of corruption there. No one's raiding his house. Hillary Clinton, she had she was subpoenaed for her server, and her workers or people went out there and destroyed a bunch of the stuff. There was no penalty for that. So anyone pretending that there is an equal and fair distribution of justice is an absolute fraud or a moron. And unfortunately, a good 40% of our country are absolute morons. And sometimes, and I make this mistake, I go on Twitter and I see these people and I go, for the love of God, I hope that this is not representative of most of the people in this country. And thankfully, I don't think it is. But still, it's about 40, maybe 45%. And they are willing to do anything they have. We saw with Sam Harris when he said, I don't care what they find on Hunter Biden or Joe Biden. Trump is such a threat that we can lie, cheat, and steal to keep him out of power. And that is A-okay by me. And he's not alone in that. He represents, again, the entire Washington, D.C. establishment and most progressive Democrats out there. And that is a very scary thing when your enemy is so bad that there's nothing that you can do that is going too far. And so again, for that reasoning, it is well within the realm of possibility that we will turn on the TV one day and we will see Donald Trump in handcuffs being walked out of Trump Tower. Do not be surprised if that happens. That doesn't mean he'll be in jail or eventually get convicted, but just alone that optic, they would absolutely indict him and have the FBI do that just for that optic to embarrass MAGA and to, once again, put it out there. If you challenge the neoliberal Washington, D.C. globalist establishment, they will come for you, they will embarrass you, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So these next few months, coming up to the midterms and past, will be very interesting. And be ready for anything, because anything could happen. We are in scary times. Well, that's it for now. Again, if you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.